It started with a whisper, a quiet rumor floating around D.C. political circles in the early hours of the morning. But by noon, the whisper had transformed into a thunderstorm. Usha Vance had broken down in front of close friends and surrendered herself to Christianity in a moment so raw, so emotional, so desperate, it shook everyone who witnessed it. Not because she wanted spiritual peace, not because she was seeking forgiveness, not because of politics, pressure, or publicity, but because of one name she could no longer escape: Erika Kirk. According to insiders, Usha's breakdown wasn't a gentle emotional release, it was a full collapse. Tears, shaking, gripping her hands together as she prayed out loud, pleading for divine protection over her family, and begging for strength to keep her marriage from falling apart. Witnesses say she kept repeating one sentence: "Lord, please don't let her take him." Because Erika wasn't just a complication. She wasn't just a rumor. She wasn't just a problem Usha could ignore anymore. She had become a threat. A spiritual threat, a marital threat, a political threat. J.D. Vance had been acting distant for months, leaving home earlier, coming back later, taking private calls in the garage, hiding texts, changing passwords, and whenever Usha asked what was going on, J.D. had the same cold, deflective reply: "It's work, you wouldn't understand." But Usha did understand, maybe too well, because every time his behavior changed, Erika's name appeared somewhere in the background. A private meeting here, a mentorship conversation there, little secrets, late-night strategy calls, quiet alliances. And when Usha finally confronted him, he didn't deny it, he just froze. And it was that silence, that terrifying, heart-shattering silence that pushed Usha to fall to her knees, tears streaming, praying harder than she ever had in her life. Because if Erika was capable of manipulating Charlie Kirk, if she was capable of infiltrating TPUSA from the inside, if she was capable of twisting powerful men into pawns, what was she planning with J.D. Vance? And why was he letting her get close? Usha's conversion wasn't a moment of faith, it was a moment of fear. A moment of a woman realizing she might lose her husband, not to another woman romantically, but to a woman whose influence spreads like smoke, quiet, deadly, suffocating. And Usha vowed, right then and there, that she would fight back, spiritually, emotionally, publicly, if she had to, because she refused to let Erika Kirk take one more man down. But the part nobody expected, the real reason Usha collapsed, has nothing to do with jealousy, and everything to do with a secret she discovered about Erika just 48 hours earlier. A secret so dark, it could destroy J.D. Vance's career and their marriage forever. Long before Usha Vance collapsed into a trembling prayer circle, before she whispered desperate pleas for protection, before she broke down in tears asking God to keep Erika away from my husband, there was a slow, quiet unraveling happening inside the Vance household. One that nobody noticed at first. One that J.D. thought he could hide forever. One that Erika thought she could manipulate from a distance without consequence. And one that Usha felt creeping into her marriage long before anyone dared to say her name out loud. Because Usha isn't a loud woman. She doesn't rant online. She doesn't expose her struggles publicly. She doesn't fight with Erika on camera or drop indirect shade into Instagram stories. She watches. She observes. She thinks. And when something feels wrong, she feels it in her bones. And for months, something about JD's behavior felt wrong. It began subtly, a tension she sensed long before she knew the cause. JD would come home mentally absent, drifting through the house like a ghost, barely making eye contact. He started taking calls outside instead of answering them in the living room. He started traveling more, claiming last-minute political strategy sessions that didn't align with any publicly known schedule. He stopped talking to her about his stresses. He stopped asking for her advice. He stopped letting her into his world. At first, she thought it was pressure, his rising political visibility, his new alliances, the endless cycle of media expectations, the pressure of being the next generation, of a conservative movement changing rapidly behind the scenes. But little cracks began to show. There were nights where he paced the hallway on the phone, whispering urgently, as if he didn't want her to hear the name on the other end. Nights where he spent hours texting someone, only to slam his phone down when she walked into the room. Nights where he wouldn't sleep at all, tossing, turning, staring at the ceiling with eyes that looked haunted. Usha asked him if something was wrong. He always said, "It's work. I'm fine." But Usha knew fine is the favorite word of someone who is falling apart. And the more JD whispered into late-night phone calls, the more Erika Kirk's name seemed to appear in places it didn't belong. It started with small things. A forwarded email from Erika marked urgent. A calendar meeting JD didn't tell Usha about. A private dinner invitation from Erika under the excuse of political alignment. Repeated praise from JD about Erika's insight, instincts, and deep experience. Then Usha noticed something that made her stomach twist. Every time Erika posted online, JD watched it within seconds. Every time she launched a project, he boosted it immediately. Every time she hinted at trouble, he became irritable and withdrawn. Usha wasn't jealous. She wasn't insecure. She wasn't the type of woman to assume an affair. But she recognized emotional influence when she saw it. And Erika wasn't just influencing JD. She was infiltrating him. That was the part Usha couldn't shake. But the real shift, the moment Usha's spirit told her something far more sinister was happening, came after Charlie Kirk collapsed. The entire conservative world shook, scrambling for explanations. Erika cried publicly, dramatically, almost theatrically. But behind closed doors, according to multiple insiders, she was calling JD privately, not for comfort, but for strategy. Usha overheard one of those calls. Late one night, when JD stepped into his office and closed the door, Usha walked past and froze when she heard Erika's voice through the crack in the doorway. Not emotional, not broken, not grieving, sharp, cold, in control. Usha heard Erika say, "We can't let the board twist this. You need to stand with me when this breaks." Stand with her for what? Stand with her against who? But JD didn't respond with empathy or caution. He responded with obedience. "I'm already working on it." Usha's heart dropped. What was he working on? Why was Erika directing him? Why was JD aligning with a woman surrounded by scandal? Usha walked away quietly. But tears were already filling her eyes. She wasn't dealing with simple friendship. She wasn't dealing with political partnership. She was dealing with a woman who had just lost her husband under suspicious circumstances and was now pulling JD into a vortex of secrecy and manipulation. Things got worse when JD returned home from a private trip to DC. A trip he claimed was about committee meetings. He walked into the house with a look Usha had never seen on him before, a mixture of dread and obligation. He avoided her for 2 days straight. On the third day, she confronted him in the kitchen, voice trembling. "What did she tell you?" JD froze. His face went blank. He said nothing. He just stared. That stare told Usha everything. Erika had told him something. Something big. Something dangerous. Something he wasn't prepared to protect his wife from. Something he felt responsible for handling. Alone. And then, 2 nights later, while JD was showering, Usha saw his phone light up. The message preview was short but devastating. "Erika Kirk, did you delete everything like I said?" Delete what? Texts? Evidence? Communication logs? Political documents? Usha's heart stopped. Her mind raced. Why was Erika telling her husband to delete anything? Why was JD listening? Why was he part of something that clearly needed covering up? Then came the final straw. The detail that shattered Usha into a spiritual collapse. A friend of a friend, someone close to Mikey McCoy's wife, reached out to Usha quietly, saying, "There are things you don't know. Things about Erika. Things your husband might be caught in." She wouldn't give specifics, but she confirmed one line that broke Usha completely. Erika contacted JD the same night Charlie collapsed. Before she called 911, Usha covered her mouth to stop from screaming. Her hands shook. Her knees weakened. Her heart raced so fast she nearly fainted. Why would Erika call JD before calling emergency help? What was JD involved in? Why was she dragging him into her chaos? Usha spent an entire night sitting on the floor, tears dripping into her hands, whispering prayers she hadn't said since she was a teenager. As she begged God for clarity, Something inside her broke and something else awakened. She didn't just want answers. She wanted protection. She wanted spiritual shelter. She wanted divine intervention to keep her husband from becoming Erika's next pawn. And when the fear became too much to bear, she walked into church alone, placed her shaking hands on the altar, and surrendered herself to Christianity, begging God to pull JD away from Erika's grasp before the truth devoured their marriage entirely. But what Usha didn't know was that Erika wasn't done yet. And the secret Erika was hiding, the one JD knows, the one Charlie confronted, the one Mikey's wife hinted at, the one mentioned in the affidavit, the one that could ruin Usha's entire life, had nothing to do with romance. It was far, far darker. The real breaking point, the moment Usha Vance's world went from quiet suspicion to catastrophic panic, didn't come from JD's distance, or Erika's whispers, or the leaked messages, or even the revelation that Erika had called JD before calling 911 the night Charlie collapsed. It came from something far more hidden, something JD had been trying desperately to protect Usha from, something he never intended for her to find out. But secrets have a habit of finding their way into the light, especially when the people keeping them are cracking under pressure. It happened after one of JD's late-night strategy meetings, the kind he claimed was routine, the kind he insisted Usha didn't need to worry about. He came home distracted, pale, sweating lightly as if he'd run from something rather than walked out of a building. Usha noticed instantly. She always noticed. He didn't hug her. He didn't greet her. He just walked past her and went straight into his office, locking the door even though he never locked it before. Usha stood frozen in the hallway, her heart thumping so loudly she felt it in her throat. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. That night, after JD went to sleep, Usha opened his laptop, something she hadn't done in years, something she felt guilty doing, something she would only do if she believed, deep down, that her marriage was in danger. And what she discovered didn't just break her heart, it shattered her world. In a hidden folder one JD thought she'd never know existed, she found a chain of encrypted messages between JD and an unidentified user labeled only as K. The first message was dated 3 weeks before Charlie collapsed. "I talked to Erika. She's worried the file might resurface." File? What file? Another message, this time from K. She said the risk isn't the file. It's what Charlie learned from it. Usha's stomach twisted. Charlie didn't just collapse. He confronted someone. He learned something. He saw something. And that something involved Erika. And clearly JD as well. She kept scrolling. A message from JD. If he tells the board, everything shifts. It affects the Senate push. It affects all of us. A response from K. Then keep him away from them until I arrive. Usha gasped, covering her mouth. This wasn't a scandal. This wasn't gossip. This was political engineering, internal sabotage, a planned containment, and JD was involved. But then came something even worse, a message that made Usha feel like the ground beneath her feet had disappeared. Tell Erika not to panic. If Charlie confronts the staffer, we'll handle it. Handle it? What did handle it mean? Cover it up? Stop the meeting? Interfere? Usha felt her breath leaving her body in shallow, choked gasps. She didn't want to keep reading, but she had to. The next message was the one that changed everything. If he sees the documents before I get back, we're all exposed. Before I get back? Who was K? Where was he? Why was Erika and JD taking orders from him? Why was this stranger pulling strings behind 2 marriages, 2 careers, and one of the most powerful conservative networks in the country? But the message that broke Usha completely, the message that sent a cold, paralyzing fear through every vein, was from Erika herself, a forwarded message JD had saved. Make sure Usha doesn't see anything. She can't handle this. Usha's hands shook violently. She sat on the floor. Her breath hitched. Her vision blurred. Erika was giving instructions about her marriage, about what JD should keep from her. This wasn't manipulation from afar. This wasn't emotional influence. This wasn't passive involvement. Erika was directly interfering. But the darkest part? JD listened. He didn't push back. He didn't defend his wife. He didn't say Erika was overstepping. He replied, "I'll keep her out of it." That single sentence hollowed Usha from the inside out. She wasn't losing her husband emotionally. She had already lost him strategically. He wasn't protecting her. He was protecting Erika's secrets. And that's when Usha realized JD wasn't distancing from her because of political stress. He was distancing because he was keeping a lie too big, too heavy, too dangerous to share with the woman he claimed to love. But the nightmare wasn't over, because the folder on JD's laptop contained something worse than messages. It contained a PDF, a confidential memo, a document JD downloaded and renamed to something innocent. The original file name: Internal Advisory Note Subject: Risk Assessment, Erika Kirk plus JD Vance. Usha's hands went numb. She clicked it. The document opened to a heading that nearly made her faint: Private Assessment. Potential liability if relationship with Erika Kirk becomes public. Public? Relationship? Her heart screamed. No, not that. Anything but that. And then she read the first paragraph, the paragraph that completely destroyed any illusion she had left. If interactions between Senator Vance and Mrs. Kirk are misinterpreted by outside observers, or if existing communication patterns are exposed without context, the political fallout could be severe. Existing communication patterns, not hypothetical, not potential, existing. But then, the twist that froze Usha's blood. The next line: It is necessary to ensure Usha remains unaware to avoid emotional destabilization that could lead to leaks. Usha dropped the laptop. They weren't just hiding contact. They were hiding an entire operation, and she was intentionally being kept in the dark. Her emotional pain wasn't the risk. Her truth was. But that wasn't the final blow. The final blow came from the second page. The part of the memo marked confidential, redacted in some sections, but not the most important one. A line circled in red: Senator Vance must maintain communication with Erika Kirk until K returns. Severing connection prematurely exposes all three. All three. JD, Erika, and K. K, the hidden advisor, the mastermind, the ghost behind Erika's collapse. The voice Charlie confronted, the person Erika obeyed, the one JD was answering to, the one Mikey refused to talk about, the one insiders feared. K was not an advisor. K was the architect. And now Usha understood why Erika converted JD into her confidant, why JD kept secrets, why Charlie confronted the staffer, why Erika panicked when Charlie collapsed, why Mikey said, "Someone talked to him already," why the affidavit was being prepared, why K vanished. Because the entire time, Usha assumed she was losing her husband to Erika. But she was wrong. JD wasn't being pulled by Erika. JD was being handled, controlled, manipulated by a man powerful enough to direct Erika and bold enough to rope a U.S. senator into a scandal that could bury all of them alive. And that brings us to the shocking first twist. Usha didn't convert to Christianity because of fear. She converted because of a revelation. Just hours before she broke down at the church, someone, a woman whose identity is still unknown, sent Usha a message with 4 words: "Ask him about K." JD froze when she confronted him. He didn't deny. He didn't explain. He just whispered, "I can't protect you if you know." Protect her from what? From WHO? From how deep this conspiracy went? Usha realized Erika wasn't the main threat. Erika was just a pawn. The real danger was K, and he was coming back. And JD was terrified. But the cliffhanger? K wasn't just advising Erika. He wasn't just influencing JD. He wasn't just connected to Charlie's collapse. According to the final line in the memo, the one JD highlighted in bold, K's return will determine whether Senator Vance advances or is eliminated as a liability. Eliminated. A sitting senator. A husband. A father. Her husband. Usha realized this wasn't emotional infidelity. This was political warfare. And JD was on the brink of being sacrificed. Usha's hands trembled for hours after reading the memo. Her mind kept replaying that final sentence. Eliminated as a liability. Not removed. Not replaced. Not distanced. Eliminated. A word with finality. A word with threat. A word that had no place inside a political advisory document unless something far more sinister was happening behind the scenes. She looked at her husband differently after that. Not with anger, not with betrayal, but with mortal fear. Because now she understood that JD wasn't just acting distant. He wasn't just hiding emotional entanglements. He wasn't just falling under Erika's influence. He was trapped, being used, being pushed, being shaped, being placed on a chessboard he didn't control. And the worst part? JD believed he was protecting Usha by keeping her in the dark. But Usha wasn't safe. Not anymore. Not after what she now knew. 2 days after she confronted JD about Kay, strange things began happening around the Vance household. Small things at first, barely noticeable unless you were paying attention. Their home security system randomly reset. A black SUV idled across the street for 30 minutes. A man JD recognized from D.C. coincidentally appeared at the grocery store where Usha was shopping. Their neighbor mentioned seeing someone checking the backyard gate. JD brushed it off as paranoia. Usha knew better. Because the memo didn't lie. Someone was watching them. Someone was preparing for Kay's return. Someone was evaluating whether JD was still useful. And the closer Usha looked, the more terrified she became. Because JD wasn't unraveling because of guilt. He was unraveling because of pressure. Something or someone was squeezing him from all sides. And Erika? She was the distraction, the smoke, the emotional chaos. Kay was the fire. The escalation snapped into reality the moment Usha received a text from an unknown number. Not threatening, not dramatic, not explicit. Just one eerie sentence. He's failing the assignment. Usha's blood went cold. What assignment? Who was evaluating JD's performance? What was he supposed to be doing? Was this connected to his trips? His late-night calls? His sudden involvement with Erika? She went to confront JD again, but when she entered his office, he was sitting at his desk, pale, sweating, gripping his phone like a lifeline. His entire body trembled. Usha rushed toward him. JD? What happened? He looked up at her with eyes she barely recognized. Eyes filled with fear. Eyes filled with shame. Eyes filled with someone who knew he was trapped in something too big to escape alone. Usha, he whispered. Please don't ask me anything else. I don't know how to get out of this. Out of what? Usha could barely breathe. But before she could ask again, JD's phone buzzed. He froze. Usha watched the color drain from his face as he opened the message. This one wasn't from Kay. It was from Erika, and it was terrifying. He's back. Usha nearly collapsed. Kay was back. The ghost. The mastermind. The architect of everything. The unknown figure Charlie confronted. The one JD was answering to. The one Erika obeyed. It was happening. And Erika wasn't warning JD. She was commanding him. Hours later, political insiders confirmed something shocking. A private meeting had been scheduled at an undisclosed location involving high-ranking conservative strategists. JD was expected to attend. Invitations were cryptic. No agenda, no listed speakers, no clear purpose. Just a location and a timestamp. The kind of meeting where decisions aren't discussed. They're delivered. JD didn't want to go. Usha could see it. He was shaking as he put on his suit. JD, don't go, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please, I don't care what you're involved in. Just stay home tonight. But JD stared at her like a man walking toward a guillotine. I don't have a choice anymore. It was the most defeated sentence she'd ever heard. He grabbed his keys, his phone, his wallet. Usha grabbed his hand with both of hers. JD, please. He cut her off, voice trembling. If I don't go, Erika will. Usha's heart dropped. That didn't make sense. Why would Erika go to a meeting meant for him? Why would Erika be allowed into a meeting for senators? What power did Erika have? Or worse, what power did Kay have over both of them? JD leaned closer, lowering his voice. Kay wants someone to take responsibility for what happened to Charlie. And Erika made it clear she won't let it be her. Usha stumbled backward. So that was the plan. That was why Erika needed JD. That was why she whispered, manipulated, strategized. If Charlie's collapse connected back to her, if the truth leaked, if the recording surfaced, someone would have to take the fall. And Erika decided it would be JD. JD left the house that night. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't say he loved her. He didn't promise to return. He left like a man heading into something he couldn't escape. Usha sat in the living room for 2 hours, sobbing into a pillow, praying the same prayer she prayed during her breakdown. Lord, please don't let her take him. But it wasn't Erika she needed to fear. It was Kay, the man JD was being fed to. Meanwhile, in the upper political circles, rumors spread like smoke through an old building. Kay was in town. Kay was meeting with select figures. Kay had instructions for the future of the party. Kay wanted loyalty. Real loyalty. Not the performative kind. Some said he was furious. Some said he was disappointed. Some said he believed someone had betrayed him. No one used his real name. Nobody dared. Kay was a phantom, the kind of man who could end careers with a whisper and elevate nobody into somebody with a handshake. And Erika? She wasn't afraid of JD's marriage crumbling. She wasn't afraid of Usha confronting her. She wasn't afraid of the affidavit. She was afraid of Kay being angry. The second major twist dropped the next morning. A political journalist leaked a portion of the affidavit draft. The part everyone had been waiting for. The part naming Kay. Except, Kay's name was blacked out. But the description wasn't. A senior strategist connected to multiple conservative campaigns, operating off the books, with influence across donor networks, messaging teams, and internal conflict resolution, known for crisis intervention, revered and feared within leadership circles. Political insiders instantly recognized the profile. People began whispering the same name, a name with enough weight to crush JD, enough power to control Erika, enough reach to manipulate Charlie's final days. But the journalist added one horrifying detail. The advisor had a documented conflict with Charlie Kirk weeks before the collapse. Documented conflict before the collapse. JD wasn't the first target. Charlie was. And when Charlie tried to expose Kay, Usha finally understood the truth. JD wasn't chosen to replace Charlie. He was chosen to be controlled. And Erika? She was the middle piece connecting them both. But the cliffhanger wasn't the identity of Kay. It wasn't the affidavit. It wasn't the danger JD walked into. It was the final sentence of the leak. Kay requested a closed meeting with Senator Vance tonight. JD hadn't just walked into danger. He had walked into Kay's hands. And whatever happened in that room would determine the fate of his career, his marriage, and his life. By the time Usha drove home clutching the folder and the mysterious USB drive, the political world had already begun vibrating with unease. Anonymous sources whispered about a shift in the Vance household. Capitol Hill aides claimed JD had been acting unusually distracted, as if he were waiting for something to blow up. Staffers noticed Usha's sudden appearance at 3 separate churches within 48 hours, looking exhausted, hollow-eyed, clinging to her Bible like a shield. But the explosion didn't start inside their home. It started online. A journalist from a conservative watchdog group dropped a cryptic tweet. Significant tensions inside Senator Vance's circle. Something about an advisor. People assumed it was minor typical political drama. But then a second journalist tweeted, hearing rumors that a major internal conflict involves Charlie Kirk's widow and Senator Vance. Developing story. That single sentence sent shockwaves through conservative media. Why were Erika Kirk and JD Vance suddenly being mentioned together? Why did insiders describe JD as visibly stressed? Why was Usha, normally private and composed, seen crying in public? Within hours, podcasts lit up with speculation. One host said, "I've heard Erika Kirk has been involved in more back-channel political moves than people realize." Another, "This is more than grief or gossip. There's a coordination happening. Someone powerful is behind both Erika and Vance." They didn't know how right they were. Meanwhile, Usha was shaking as she placed the USB into her laptop, practically praying the house was spiritually shielded. Her heart raced like a drumbeat. Her fingers trembled. She hesitated before clicking the single file inside. Play, me, first. The moment she pressed play, her entire world shifted. It wasn't a video. It wasn't documents. It wasn't a confession. It was an audio file. Static at first, then a voice. A voice Usha recognized instantly. Kay. Cold. Smooth. Calculated. Speaking with someone. Someone scared. Someone pleading. The second voice belonged to the junior staffer, the missing witness. They were whispering. He saw the file. He wants answers. Kay responded. He wasn't supposed to get it. Who gave it to him? Static. Do we intervene? The staffer asked. Kay's tone sharpened. If Charlie shares that file with the board, it's over for all of us. I need you to follow the plan. Follow the plan. Usha's voice trembled. Her breath went shallow. She pressed her hand to her chest, forcing herself not to scream. The recording continued. The staffer's voice was shaking. What about Mrs. Kirk? She's panicking. Kay exhaled sharply. Tell Erika to stall him until I return. She knows what to do. And then the phrase that made Usha's soul leave her body. If Charlie sees the whole file, eliminate the risk. You understand? Eliminate the risk. Usha slapped her hand over her mouth to stop the scream, threatening to escape. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. The recording kept playing, but she couldn't hear anything anymore, not over the sound of her own heartbeat pounding violently in her ears. Charlie had been a risk. The file was a threat. Kay had given instructions. Erika followed them. JD became trapped in the aftermath. Usha was never supposed to know, but now she did, and the world was about to as well. Because while Usha was drowning in terror, the political media ecosystem had erupted into full-blown hysteria. A breaking news headline suddenly flashed across every social platform. Whistleblower affidavit alleges cover-up in Charlie Kirk incident. Insiders recognized the source immediately. A trusted legal correspondent known for leaking political scandals accurately. The affidavit didn't mention Kay by name yet, but it did reference. A powerful political strategist, a hidden advisor, a coordinated effort to control narratives, a pattern of interference with internal investigations, a senator unknowingly caught in the crossfire. The fallout was instant. Political commentators panicked live on air. If this is true, it's the biggest conservative scandal since 2016. J.D. Vance may be forced to testify. Erika Kirk has some serious explaining to do. Who is this unnamed strategist pulling strings? People speculated on Reddit, TikTok, Twitter, Telegram. Was it a former RNC advisor? A megadonor? A Hollywood conservative power broker? A secret political consultant? The internet hunted for Kay, like a ghost. But the shockwave wasn't just online, it hit Washington hard. Senators began distancing themselves from JD. A white envelope was delivered to his office marked Urgent Legal. Reporters camped outside their home. Cameras caught JD walking into the Capitol looking absolutely devastated. One journalist shouted, "Senator Vance, did you know Erika Kirk was coordinating with the advisor?" JD didn't answer. He looked down. He looked broken. That clip spread everywhere. Meanwhile, Usha felt physically sick watching the chaos unfold on her screen. She replayed the audio over and over, each time noticing new details. She missed the way Kay spoke with absolute confidence, the way the staffer's breathing shook, the way Kay said, "No one is irreplaceable. Not even him. Not even him." Charlie Kirk, a conservative giant, a cultural symbol, a movement leader, reduced to a pawn in someone else's game. And now the Vances were trapped in the same game. But the darkest fallout came when a political operative, someone who once worked closely with Erika, tweeted, "If Kay is involved, no one is safe." Within minutes, that tweet was deleted. But screenshots live forever. And Usha understood something horrifying. This wasn't just a political scandal. This wasn't just a betrayal. This wasn't just a cover-up. This was a machine, an organized, shadowed, strategically engineered machine that controlled politicians from behind the scenes. And Kay was one of its architects. Usha realized something else too. If the whistleblower affidavit exposed Kay, if the recording surfaced publicly, if JD's involvement became undeniable, JD's career might not be the only thing destroyed. Their family could be targeted. Their safety could be compromised. Their future could become collateral damage. She grabbed her phone with shaking hands and called JD. He answered in a whisper. "They know, don't they?" Usha sobbed. "It's worse than that. The recording, JD." The recording. JD inhaled sharply. A long silence followed. Then JD whispered the most chilling sentence yet. Kay sent someone to Ohio this morning. Usha felt the room tilt. Her knees nearly buckled. Ohio? Their home. Their children. JD continued. We need to leave the house. Now. Usha's heart stopped. If Kay sent someone, if the affidavit is days from public release, if the recording proves everything, if Erika breaks under pressure, then the machine is cleaning up loose ends. And loose ends don't get warnings. The moment JD whispered, Kay sent someone to Ohio, Usha felt a cold, paralyzing terror rise up through her chest. Not fear, this was something deeper, something instinctual, something primal. The kind of dread that tells you your life is no longer moving normally, your life is being moved. She stared at the staircase where her children slept, and her breath fractured into tiny, panicked pieces. JD, what do you mean someone is coming here? JD didn't answer immediately. His silence said everything. Finally, he whispered, he wants the recording. If we don't hand it over before it leaks, he'll do whatever he has to do. Usha's hands flew to her mouth. This wasn't politics anymore. This wasn't a scandal. This wasn't damage control. This was survival. JD rushed through the front door minutes later, practically sprinting across the living room, grabbing Usha by her shoulders, his voice trembling as he said, we have to go, right now. We can't stay here. But Usha shook her head, eyes wide with realization. JD, the kids. JD blinked, realizing what he'd forgotten in his panic. He ran up the stairs 2 at a time, pulling their children from their beds as gently as he could, whispering, hey buddy, hey sweetheart, we're taking a trip, okay? Stay quiet. Stay with mommy. His voice cracked on the last word. But just as Usha reached the front door with backpacks and jackets, something made her freeze. Lights. A car pulling up. Slow. Deliberate. Unfamiliar. JD looked through the window and froze. That's not a neighbor. Time slowed. Usha saw the silhouette inside the vehicle, a man in a dark coat. Head down, not moving. Engine still running. Not knocking. Not approaching. Just watching the house. JD grabbed her arm. Back door, now. They moved like shadows. Shoes, silent on the hardwood. JD holding one child, Usha gripping the other. As the weight of what was happening crashed into her. Kay wasn't trying to bury a scandal. He was trying to prevent a detonation. The recording wasn't just dangerous. It was lethal to the machine he controlled. They slipped out the back door and into the trees behind their house, breathing hard, branches snapping underfoot. The cold air stung their faces. Usha held her daughter tight against her chest, whispering prayers under her breath, asking God to guide their steps. JD's phone buzzed. He almost threw it in fear, but the screen lit up with a text from a blocked number. Stay put, we need to talk. JD's voice shook with anger. He knows we left the house. Usha didn't have time to respond. Headlights from the front driveway began sweeping across the yard as the car repositioned, slowly turning, angling toward the path behind the house. He was looking for them. Usha's legs trembled so hard she nearly fell. JD pushed forward. We have to get to the main road. If we make it to the highway, we can lose him. But 3 steps later, something happened that made Usha stop dead in her tracks. Her phone buzzed. She didn't remember holding it. She didn't remember turning the screen on. But when she looked, the message wasn't from JD, not from Erika, not from an unknown number. It was from the same encrypted source that sent the USB drive. The message said, "Don't run. Listen to the end of the recording." Usha's knees almost buckled. She whispered, "JD, I didn't hear all of it." JD looked at her, horrified. "What? You stopped it?" She nodded, hand shaking violently. "I thought I knew what it said. I thought it was enough." JD grabbed her shoulders. "Usha, you need to hear the rest. If you didn't finish it." But before he could finish, a second text arrived. "Everything you think you know is incomplete. You haven't heard the last voice." Voices. Plural. JD stared at her phone with dread as if it were a weapon. "Usha, who else is on that recording?" Her breath trembled. She didn't know. She didn't want to know. But the message was clear. The audio wasn't just Kay and the staffer. Someone else spoke. Someone Usha didn't recognize. Someone whose voice was important enough that Kay would send a man to retrieve the audio before it leaked. JD swallowed. "Play it. JD, the kids. Play it, Usha." Her thumb pressed the file. Static, a familiar click. Kay's voice. Calm, arrogant, confident. The staffer, breathing hard, asking what to do next. Then the sentence Usha had already heard. "If Charlie sees the whole file, eliminate the risk." More static. And then, a new voice. A voice Usha recognized instantly. A voice she never imagined would be part of this. A voice that made JD grab the tree trunk beside him and nearly collapse. Erika. Her voice was shaking, not with fear, but with something else entirely. "If we take him out now, JD becomes the fallback." The world stopped. JD's face drained of color. Usha's heart exploded into 1,000 pieces. Erika continued. "He trusts JD. He listens to him. And if JD cooperates, we can keep the board aligned." Kay said, "This is the cleanest solution." The cleanest solution. Charlie collapsing wasn't an accident. It wasn't panic. It wasn't coincidence. It was a plan. A coordinated plan. A plan involving Erika, and Kay, and JD. Usha stepped back from her husband. Tears streaming, betrayal cutting through her like a blade. JD choked. "Usha, I didn't know I wasn't part of that. I swear to God I didn't know," she said that. But Usha wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the phone, at the message that appeared the moment the audio stopped. "If you want the whole truth, you're not ready for the ending." A second message followed. Erika wasn't the one Kay groomed first. Usha froze. JD froze. And then the final message. "He started with your husband." The forest went silent. The children clutched tighter. The headlights reappeared through the trees. Usha realized the truth. This wasn't just about Erika. This wasn't just about Charlie. This wasn't just about the file. Kay had been manipulating JD long before any of them knew. And now that Usha had the proof, she was the last loose end. Blackout. And now, as the headlights cut through the trees, as Usha clutched her children and JD stood frozen between guilt and terror, as the truth about Kay's manipulation finally surfaced not through rumor, not through speculation, but through a recording powerful enough to unravel an entire political machine, one thing became painfully clear. This story is nowhere near over. Because the moment Usha heard Erika say, "If we take him out now, JD becomes the fallback," the world shifted. Not just for her. Not just for JD. Not just for Erika. But for every person who had unknowingly become a pawn in Kay's silent operation. Charlie wasn't the beginning of the scandal. He was the warning shot. And Usha? She wasn't the collateral damage. She was the key. The one person Kay underestimated. The one person with the audio, the folder, the knowledge, and the sheer, desperate will to protect her family at any cost. But what happens next? Does Usha go public with the recording? Does JD break away from Kay or fall deeper under his influence? Does Erika panic, or does she double down on protecting the mastermind who has been whispering orders into her life for years? And most importantly, when Kay finds out Usha knows everything, what will he do? Because one thing is certain. The machine doesn't forgive loose ends. And Usha Vance just became the biggest loose end of all. Now I want you, yes, the viewer, to tell me exactly what you think. Do you believe Kay orchestrated Charlie's collapse? Do you think Erika was fully involved or just another manipulated pawn? Do you think JD knew more than he admitted? And what do you think is coming next now that Usha has the recording and Kay knows it? Drop your theories in the comments right now. Every perspective matters because this story is spiraling faster than anyone predicted. And if you don't want to miss the next twist, the next exposure, the next leak, you must like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you're the first to see what happens when Usha decides her next move. Because trust me, the moment she presses play again, the moment she reveals the final name on that recording, the moment Kay realizes he's losing control, the entire conservative world will erupt. Stay tuned. The next chapter is going to be even wilder.